Well, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad to be back. I was gone a week, as you know. Seems like a long time a week, but I'm happy to be back. I'm excited to get painting again. It's great to see all of you. And we're going to look at some more flip and drag techniques today. I'm going to be doing 2 new demos for you. So welcome everyone. I hope you're excited. I haven't painted in a week and a half about, so I am ready to get back into it. Hopefully I'm not too rusty. I feel pretty good about it though. So welcome. Hey Carla, and Pat is here, and hey Cinda, great to see you. Hey Monique, great to see you. So let's get going. We're going to be doing 2 different flip and drag demos. I've got 2 16 by 20 canvases all ready to go. I'm still working with a triadic color scheme. I'll show you what I've mixed up here in a second. And we're going to be doing slightly more advanced flip and drag techniques tonight. I'm going to be using a split base coat on both of them. And so I have 3 big old cups of paint ready to go, and all in this triadic kind of color scheme. And hopefully we get some very cool results. This is kind of a fun technique. I like this kind of split base technique, and we're not going to be using any combs or anything. We're just going to use our paint, and we're drag our cup over our 2 split base coats, and do some kind of aggressive tilting and see what we can come up with. So it should be a whole lot of fun. The painting right behind me, this one is similar to what we're going to be doing, only this does not have a split base. This is just like a singular base coat, but something similar like that. I kind of like the organic feel. You can still get some very interesting shapes and lines and edges and things like that without kind of the contrived combs and things like, you know, what we did last time. So welcome everyone. We're going to dive right in, and let's see here. I'm just checking the comments. Hopefully I can figure out or remember how to do all this stuff with the technology. It's coming back to me. So, all right. So, okay, let's dive in. I've been watching a lot of your paintings in the Facebook group. They look fantastic. So thanks for uploading them. Those look awesome. And so, all right, let's jump over and I'll show you the colors we're going to be working with and the triadic color scheme we've got going on today. So here we go. Hit the right button. Here we are. So here are all the paints I use. Here are the colors that I've got mixed up and ready to go. And here's my color wheel, of course. And this is kind of, I'm going kind of in between here of a red-violet, red, kind of a red-red-violet, yellow-yellow-orange, and kind of blue-blue-green triad. So you don't have to be, you know, perfect with the red, blue, yellow, or the red-violet, blue-green, yellow, orange. I'm going kind of right in the middle there. So I've got kind of a reddish color mixed up and more of a red-violet color. So feel free to take some liberties, you know, with these colors. You can kind of push the boundaries of which colors you think like fall into these ranges. You don't have to be, you know, stick to them like very, you know, perfectly or whatever it says on the, you know, paint tube. I like to, you know, push the limits pretty far actually. And as long as I think it falls in there, that's good enough for me. So, and who else? No one's going to know. No one's going to look at your notes or anything. You don't have to tape a color wheel next to your painting or anything like that. So remember, this is just a tool to give you some ideas. So you don't have to stick to it, you know, really, really strictly. So that's what I'm going with. More of a red, red, violet, kind of yellow, yellow, orange, and kind of blue, blue, green. So let's take a look at the colors I've mixed up. So these are the 3 base coat colors I'm going to be using. For our first demo, I'm going to be using this very light, very, very light blue. It's actually a light turquoise, and it's mostly white with a little bit of Artist Loft turquoise in there. So that's kind of our blue-green color. And so it's a very light value. This one is a much darker value. It's got some turquoise. It's got some phthalo blue, so it's a little bit more on the blue side of the blue-green, and it's got some black just to darken it up a little bit. So it's a very nice, rich, deep kind of blue-green color. So these are going to be the two base coats for the first demo. And right here, this one is going to be in the second demo, and this is a red-violet color. And this one I used light violet from Artist Loft, and I put in some of this beautiful pearlized wine red from Master's Touch. So those two together created this more of a red violet. So I kind of built my own red violet out of these two colors. And this is going to be part of our base coat for the second demo. I'm going to be using some more of this blue as our second part of the base coat. So this will be kind of part of the base coat in both demos. But I wanted to kind of keep things relatively simple. So this is kind of our dark value for both paintings. So those are big old cups of paint, and they'll probably show up in our layered cups as well as we move forward. Now this one is just turquoise, just regular old Artist Loft turquoise. This one is that wine red color, the pearlized wine red. It's a very pretty color. It's a reddish, it's more on the red side than the red violet side. Again, I'm taking some liberties there, but it's a very beautiful color. This is just gold from Liquitex Basics that we have right here. And then this is metallic white. I just wanted a very light value. So we've got the Artist Loft metallic white, which we'll probably use a little sparingly in these layered cups. But those are the colors, and we've got, this is our yellow orange, of course. This is kind of our red. This is a red violet. We've got three different blue violet, or blue green, or blue/blue greens right here. And then white, you can always add white as an extra color if you want to. So those are the color palettes. And we are going to be using two flip and drag cups. So I've created two of these cups, and these are going to be the layered cup that we use. And I'm using 5 ounces of paint in our layered cup. For 16 by 20, normally I'd be using about 13 ounces if it was a flip cup style painting. I'd be using about 10 ounces if it's more of a ring pour. So I'm going about half of the amount I would use in a ring pour for 16 by 20, because I definitely want to keep some negative space in both of the demos. So I'm going with about half of what I would use for a ring pour, and then we'll be able to tilt our paint aggressively, hopefully keep some very cool negative space shapes. And I think that's going to be very cool. So we'll find out. So I've got 2 of those ready to go. I've created, I put my little holes in there. So we have our tape tab, so we can release that vacuum once we get to that stage. So those are the colors. And why don't we begin and get going? And of course, let me talk about the formula. I'm using the Liquitex formula for all of the colors here. So the Liquitex, the new Liquitex formula I'm using is 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint, and 1/2 part the Liquitex pouring medium. So that's kind of the new recipe I've come up with. I used a different one before for a long time. It's very, very similar. This is just a little easier to measure out using 1/2 part Liquitex, 1 part paint, and it's basically the easy formula with some Liquitex added into it. So that is what all the paints are mixed with, and they're all mixed to the number 3 consistency. I'm sticking with that number 3 consistency just so I can get some a little more fluidity out of the paints. Makes it a little easier to tilt and kind of move that paint around and get some interesting shapes and lines and things like that. So let's go ahead and get going. Let me move all the paints out of the way. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask in the comments. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to move some of this stuff over here. And I'll bring it back in a moment. Let's spread our base coat first, and then we'll layer our cup, I think. That might be easier, just so we don't have that layered cup sitting there too long. And so what I'm going to do is, this canvas is a little funky. It's got a tiny bit of a twist in it, and that twist kind of came out when I spritzed the back with water. If you get that's kind of a twisted canvas, you can lift it up and give it a little tweak, kind of bend it like that, and that will kind of straighten the stretcher bars out and kind of even it out for you. So there we go. So I'm going to be pouring my 2 base coats. So again, I'm going to be using this very light kind of turquoise blue and then this darker blue. And I don't want to make a 50-50. I'm going to use a horizontal kind of landscape format for my base coat on this one. And so I want to decide which color do I want to have more dominant, the light color or the dark color. And I think I'm going to go with the light color being a little bit more dominant. So I'm thinking of maybe 70% of the light color and then maybe 30% of our darker color. So that's what I'm going to kind of pour on here. I'm just going to pour this and spread it with my palette knife. You could tilt this off and if you wanted to, but since I'm using 2 colors, I find it can be a little easier to just spread it with the palette knife. And we're going with a little bit thicker layer here. I'm not going to worry about the edges at all, or the sides of the canvas. And I put way too much on here. My goodness. So I'm going to have to pull a bunch of that off. I'm getting carried away already. But we want a slightly thicker layer of paint than we normally would use for just a standard flip cup. And this is, again, the number 3 consistency, so it's a little thinner, and it's a little easy to pour on a little too much. So let's just spread that out. Again, I have just far too much paint. I really got overexcited. And the sides will take care of themselves once we get into the tilting phase. Just want to even this out. I think I got a little chunk of something here. Whoa. Again, way too much. My gosh. Okay, that's a little bit better. Still got a lot. Man. Sorry. Okay, I think we're almost there. Almost there. Okay, I like that. That's looking pretty good. So we have a, somewhat thin layer, but there's still plenty of paint to tilt and let the other, the layered cup float around in there. So that's looking pretty good. So let's see if I can get closer with the second color. I'm going to flip this around and make it a whole lot easier on myself. So here we go. Here's our dark blue. Let's just pour some of that, and let's see how close I came. With this one. So I'm just kind of moving that paint up to touch that line And it doesn't have to be a straight line. I'm just kind of going with the straight line here. And this is a little closer. Still got too much though. So you can kind of see what this color looks like if I scrape off some. It's kind of this kind of beautiful bluish blue-green, like a deep blue-green. There, that's looking better. A little bit more. Sorry, this is the most boring part of the entire process. But things will get more exciting in a second. So there we go. We've got a split base coat happening. See if we can just even this out a little bit. Oh, geez. That looks pretty good. So we've got, this is more of a quarter, so like maybe 25%, 75%, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be exact. I just wanted to make sure our light turquoise was the dominant color up there. I might give this a little torch. I created a whole bunch of air bubbles by all the scraping and paint spreading. Okay, so I'm going to just slide this over here a little bit. And let me pull one of my cups over. So here we go. This is actually a 7-ounce cup, but I've marked it at 5 ounces again. So we're going to be using about 5 ounces, about half of the amount I would use for a ring pour on a 16 by 20, like I mentioned. I've already poked my hole and put a tape tab on the bottom, so we're good to go. So let's go ahead and layer this cup up. Now I want to use this, since this is mostly a turquoise painting, I want the turquoise to be the dominant color in the entire painting. So I'll probably be using maybe a little of this, maybe a little bit of our light color, but I'm going to go with some of the regular turquoise, some of the white, some of our red here, and some gold, since we want to have all of the colors in there. Maybe a touch of our, more of our red violet. So let's go ahead and start layering our cup. I think I'm going to start just with our turquoise. Just pour some of that in there. I haven't written down or figured out a layer, any kind of layer order. I'm just kind of winging it. I'm going to put the white in next. And after the white, I want to put in a little bit of a red violet. Then maybe some gold. And perhaps a small amount of our red. This is kind of a potent color, so we don't want to go crazy. And then on top of that, maybe a little of our light turquoise color. Then I'm going to go back to kind of a regular turquoise. Maybe another shot of our metallic white. Maybe a little of our dark, just so we have that color in our layered cup as well. A touch more red. And then I'll end it with just a little bit more of our gold. And that should be everything we need. So we've got all the colors in there. But mostly we've got the turquoises more so than the other colors. But they're all represented from our triad. So let me move some of these paints aside. So let's pull back our canvas. And let's go ahead and put our cup on there. And so I'm going to flip it over with my tool. And I'm just going to start it right on. I want to straddle the line, our base coat. So I'm going to just drop it right here, just like that. And I'll flip the camera, and then you can see a little bit better view as I drag the cup around. And let's see here. Okay, just checking the comments to see if there are any questions. Lots of great comments. No questions yet, but all right. So here we go. So I'm going to pull my cups moved a little bit. I'm going to pull my tape tab. And so I released the vacuum. I'm pushing down on the cup though. Again, I don't want to just let the cup fly away. It's going to let paint go everywhere. So I want to kind of strategically move the cup. So I'm going to just lift it a tiny bit. And I'm kind of going to pull it across our split base coat. So far it's looking interesting. We got some cool cells happening. I'm going to also kind of turn the cup as I pull it across. And let that paint just come out rather gradually. That's kind of the hardest part. Well, it's not the hardest part, but the temptation is to just lift the cup too fast and all the paint shoots out. And it likes to happen at the beginning because there's so much paint in there. But here we go. We've got, I think most of the paint stopped coming out. I'm going to just twirl the cup at the end here. And we got an interesting puddle. So we got a very interesting puddle happening. So let's go ahead and go back to the top camera. And we've got lots of cells happening in there, which is cool. So I really like this area, just the very beginning of our cup. So I want to be careful how I tilt. Now next up, we're going to aggressively tilt this paint around, try to move it and create interesting angles and edges and shapes. So, but I want to kind of think about how I want to tilt this first. I really like this a lot over here. So I don't want to just tilt over this way and dump all that off. So I'm going to be tilting maybe primarily over here first, and then kind of come back to this as we go. So the paint will dictate a lot of how I tilt, but I just want to get a kind of an idea of where I want to start. And that's kind of where I think I want to go. So I'm going to turn this slightly here. And just go for it. So yeah, you don't want to be timid or think too hard about it. Just kind of want to go for it and just see what happens and play around with the paint. So here we go. It's not moving exactly how I hoped it would, but let's keep going. There we got some interesting things. So I'm just going to set that down for a moment, kind of let it settle and level out a little bit. It's not exactly what I was hoping for. We kind of lost a lot of our dark blue down here, negative space, but we got some cool edges up at the top. So now one thing we could do, I really like the color palette. I think the colors look good together. I'm just going to try to bring some of this interesting, colorful stuff over a little bit. I'm going to pour off of that edge a little. So, but I do wish we had some more blue down here. So one thing we can try, again, my canvas is kind of going crazy again. I'm going to pour a little blue down at the bottom and see if I can get the blue to roll into our colors a little and create a little more negative space. So I'm going to wipe my fingers a little bit. I'm going to grab the blue. I got to be careful. I don't want to dump a ton of blue out. Ooh, there we go. So I've flooded the blue down here. Now what I'm gonna do is turn my canvas this way, and I'm going to tilt quickly to move that blue into our puddle and hopefully create a little more interest and interesting edges. So here we go. Whoa, that didn't quite work the way I wanted. Let's see here. Created a weird old shape right down there. Let's see. And try to just go for it again. I'm going to pour a little of that off. Okay, so there we go. We've done a pretty good job, I think. We've created more interest at the bottom. So I love this edge that we have right now. This white, this weird white shape, I don't love that, or this one particularly. We might be able to get rid of that though with my straw technique. So, but I quite like everything else. I think it's very colorful painting. I think the colors work well together. We've got some interesting negative space at the top and around the bottom. And, but right here, let's work on this. I don't love it. And so what I'm going to try to do is pull these two white things out of there. So I've got my big straw here. This is like a big, like milkshake straw. So I'm going to just try to suck those out and fill them in with blue. So let's see what happens. No guarantees, but this is like erasing your paint. So let's give it a shot. Don't drink it. We just want to suck it into the bottom part of the straw, and then I'm going to blow it out over on my paper. So here we go. That worked okay. Let's try it again. Okay, so far so good. That's not too great. And you don't want to, normally I just do this for small little spots, not big areas. So this is kind of the larger area that I'm trying to erase here. Just tapping off the excess paint on the bottom of my straw. Okay, that looks pretty good. We've eliminated the bulk of it. I'm just going to kind of use my, I'm going to turn this and get my cup. I'll just use my finger to dab a little paint on those little edges. And this will kind of blend itself out. It will kind of level out as the paint dries. And remember, no one's going to know you did this unless you tell them or make a video of it. So you can get away with little imperfections like this. No one's going to be the wiser. And there we go. We've eliminated that kind of crazy line and a little white swooshy, and I like that a whole lot better now. So, and just in case you're wondering, I'm looking at some comments. I've never gotten paint in my mouth doing that. So, and that was quite a lot I sucked up, but I've never had paint get in my mouth or close to my mouth. And Pamela's asking, could a syringe do the same? You could give it a try. You'd want a syringe though. The problem with the syringe is they normally have small openings, and you need an opening that can kind of, what I like about the big straw is you can kind of cover a lot of the paint at once. So it depends on the syringe and the opening, but it could work. So you can give it a try for sure. The bigger the opening, the better. One thing you might want to think about trying is like one of those ear syringes, or like a turkey baster syringe or something like that. I don't know if they'll have enough sucking power though to get that paint in or up. But again, I've never had paint come in my mouth doing that, because you're only sucking up a very small amount. So, but it's up to you. But it works really well in an emergency when you need to kind of erase something out of there. So, all right. So there we go. I think I'm just taking a look at it. I'm not going to do any more tilting. I quite like the results. And I'm going to leave it just like that. We've got some interesting edges. We've got a lot of cells happening, which is kind of cool. We've got some cool convergence of like lines, which would be kind of our center of interest here. Maybe one of our centers of interest right around this area. I really like this red field with this kind of gold lacing that happened in there. So all in all, pretty cool. And again, our turquoise is kind of the dominant color. Of course, it's our split base coat are both kind of turquoise. We have a lot of turquoise in our layered cup. And then those other colors, that red, violet, and our orange. And our orange, of course, is gold, and that's kind of the accent color. So the orange or the red, red, violet, kind of our secondary colors. And turned out pretty cool. And then, of course, we have white in there too, metallic white. So, all right, so there we go, one down. I'm going to put you on mute for a second. I'll be right back. I'm going to move this out of the way. And then we will jump into our second one. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and we're ready to dive into our second. This one also has a little bit of a wobble. I don't know what's up with these canvases. Give that a little tweak there. That straightened it out. And Lynn is asking what made the cells, and the cells are made by just the consistency of the paint. This is the number 3 consistency. And then there are a few metallics in here. So I've got I got 4 colors that are not metallics, and then I've got 3 metallic colors. So just the combination of getting the right consistency, you know, a little bit thinner consistency gives you, you know, cells. Having metallics in there will give you some cells. And of course, this is the Liquitex formula, which also helps give you cells, especially those smaller cells that we just saw, like lots of those cells. That's indicative of the Liquitex formula that we're using. So there's a few different ways of, or a few different reasons why cells are appearing. So good question. All right, so this time, I just give you the game plan. So I'm going to be using another split base coat, and this one's going to be predominantly our red, red, violet colors. So I'm going to put red, violet, this red, violet up in one area, and then the second base coat again will be our blue. But this time I'm going to work, I want our base coats to be, instead of a horizontal or a landscape format, I want them to be in a portrait format or a vertical format. So I can put them on this way, and I'll probably work this way maybe throughout the painting. I'll zoom out just a touch, but this time I'm going to have a red violet up here, a blue down here, and then we'll layer our cup and spread that in kind of maybe a like an arc or a V type of formation, and then do our tilting. So this will be more of a vertical oriented painting. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'll put the base coat on first, I think. And let's start with our purple. Let's see if I can control myself. And so again, about 70-30 is what I'm kind of shooting for. Proportion wise of our red violet and our blue. We're gonna need a little more, I think, but spread this out first. Oops. There we go. Just a little bit more. So something like that. That looks pretty good. It's fairly even. Might be a touch heavy, but you take a touch off, just a little. Okay. All right, I think that's good enough. We got it. I'm going to turn that around. And then I'll pour my blue on. Gonna wipe off my knife. I'm gonna spread that blue around in there. Yeah, I'm not too worried about, I actually don't want like a straight line. I want a little bit more of a interesting line. I'm gonna be moving my cup in kind of a irregular pattern, I guess. So here we go. Again, I'm going to just move my blue up a little bit into the red violet. You could have them mix a little, that's fine too. They don't have to be perfectly separated. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and layer our cup. Oh, actually, I gotta do a little torch. Just pop those bubbles. Okay, let's slide this up here. And I got my second cup. Now this time I think I'm going to actually use a little less than 5 ounces. I think that was too much for our last one. I want to have a little more negative space. So I'm going to maybe just draw a line here, just to remind myself, don't go all the way up to 5. So that might be 4 ounces, something like that. So I'm going to use a little bit less. Hopefully we can get some more interesting shapes and keep a little more of our negative space. So since this one is mostly going to be, or the dominant color is going to be our red, violet, I'm going to start with our red here. And I put that in our cup first. And then I'm going to go with actually, I'm going to go with our white next. So use a little bit of our metallic white, a little turquoise. We definitely want to put some of that in there. Maybe our gold. Uh-oh. And then some of our red violet. I'm going to put some of our dark in there too, or dark blue. Maybe a little more. I think back to our red. Those will look nice on top of each other. Another hint of gold, and I'm getting close to that line. And then a little more white, and I think that will be it. There we go. So again, we have mostly our red violets red in there, but we've got a little turquoise, we've got a little of our gold, which would be yellow or yellow-orange, and then white just for having a nice light value. And let's pull this back. Okay, so let's tilt this on, or flip it on. I'm going to drop it right, again, oops, right there. And I'll just let that sit there for a moment and flip the camera. Okay. I actually kind of like the base coat we have. That looks pretty nice. These interesting shapes we have created. But let's see if we can make it a little more interesting. So, again, I'm going to just push down gently on my cup, pull my tape tab off, and then we're going to start letting the paint out very gradually while we move it over the canvas. Now this time I have a very much shorter area to cover, so I'm going to probably try to go up and down a little bit with my cup. So let's give it a go. And I'm also going to kind of turn it as I go. And then we're done with the paint. The paint's come out. But I'm going to kind of twirl this off the edge just to create an interesting kind of shape blend of paint there. And there's our empty cup. So ready to take a look. Again, we have a nice, kind of a nice gradation of colors. And one cool thing about the flip and drag is as the paint is slowly coming out from under the cup, it's kind of blending and you get this interesting kind of swirly look with the colors, which I kind of like a lot. So let's take a look at the top view. And there we go. We got lots of cells coming up again. That's a lot because of our Liquitex formula. But I'm liking what's happening. It's looking pretty cool. So let's see here. So I'm going to tilt her this way. Just this makes it easier to tilt. And but I'm thinking this is going to be, you know, a portrait format, that vertical format. But let's go ahead. We're going to do the same thing. Just tilt kind of aggressively and kind of quickly to move the paint in interesting ways to see if we can get some very cool edges and shapes. And by the way, if you really love what's happening here, like with the Liquitex formula, you don't have to use the base coats. You could do this and just tilt it normally to end up with an interesting painting, covering the whole canvas. So this is just one way to do this with the base coat or the split base coat. But if you really love the effects, which I actually really do, you could just make this a standard flip and drag, and then we tilt this over the whole canvas. We'd be using more paint, obviously, in that case, but you'd get very similar effects, and everything would look kind of like this. So I just wanted to let you know that, or remind you of that. So let's go ahead and do a little fast tilting. I'm going to tilt this way quickly first. Now, I'm going to cover this corner and this side. So it wasn't quite doing what I was hoping, so we just have to make the best of it. Now that's kind of interesting right down there. Gonna kind of move it back. And I'm going to set it down for a moment. Now, it wasn't quite doing what I wanted. You know, it was just kind of all moving at the same time. So I decided to just take it over one corner and this edge. We got some interesting things happening on this edge, though, which I like. So you have to kind of go with the flow with these kind of quick tilting, techniques. But I do like what's happening right down here. So I'm going to just let the paint settle out, and then I'm going to do a little more tilting off of this corner closest to me. And that might be all we do. So, but I really do like everything else that's happened. I do like some of these cool shapes right down here. This might be the top, actually. So we'll turn it around in a moment and see what we get. So again, I'm going to kind of lift it and just kind of gradually let this paint come down and tilt off this closest edge a little bit. That's all we need. Take it back and tilt back a little. And one thing I'm looking at, I'm not in love with, is this right here. That was part of our base coat, but I think I want to scrape this and then just put some blue in here to have a nice blue corner. So in that case, we're not going to do the straw technique. We're going to get our smaller palette knife right here. And we're just going to drop it right on there. I'm going to just scrape that right off. And we're just going to replace it with some blue. And to be careful, I'm going to use my palette knife to put the blue on there, just so I don't flood it on. You can kind of direct the paint with your palette knife. And we have a little bit of blending right down here, which I kind of like. I'm going to just leave that alone. And there we go. So we got rid of that little spot, and I've got some corners or edges to cover. I'm not too worried about that right now. You can go back later and fill those in, or wait till it dries even to fill those in. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see which way we're going to orient it. So I'm going to try it this way first. I think I might have to zoom out just a touch. Let me try that. Here we go. So that's an interesting orientation. I kind of like it that way. We got a lot of awesome lacing, and that's the Liquitex formula doing that, and it turns out awesome. It turned out beautiful. So I think for the Friday demo, I think I might just do a standard flip and drag and just tilt the whole thing, but use the Liquitex formula for that one. And you can kind of get an idea of what that would look like. So let me turn it the other way. I kind of like it that way too. You could even put it, could even make this a horizontal if you wanted to. So, you know, this orientation, which is kind of cool. Or the other way around. I'll probably wait till it's dry, and then you can decide on the orientation you like best. I got a little spot right there. Again, you can touch up the edges later or wait till you're done. And all right, so let's see here. Elsie is asking a good question. She says, why quick tilt? Does it make a difference? Yeah, the quick tilting, Elsie, I do it because I want to create these interesting lines. And you have to do that by quickly tilting the canvas. So the paint moves fast and kind of randomly. If you tilt slowly, you're just going to get a very slow movement of the paint, and it's just not going to want to create those interesting edges and lines. And it's a difficult thing to do because you can't control the paint. So you just have to kind of hope for the best and do the best you can. And you don't know how the paint is going to react, so you just have to kind of work with what you get there. So it's a challenging technique, but you can get some very cool paintings out of it. But again, you don't have to do it that way if you like. If you don't like the negative space, or you just want to have this stuff covering everything, you can just do a standard flip and drag without trying to get these cool edges and interesting things. So there we go. Let's see. Well, that one turned out pretty cool, and I like this color scheme. I think the color scheme worked out really well. But I think maybe let's look at it this way. So I don't know. I like the vertical. I kind of like it in this orientation. But, of course, you don't have to decide right now. But, so I am happy we have, a lot of our, red-violet is kind of the dominant color. Our blue-green is kind of our secondary color. And then we have these hints of gold, these accent hints of our yellow-orange. So, all in all, it turned out pretty nice. And then, of course, that Liquitex formula can really create some awesome effects with the lacing and things like that. So it's a really fun formula to work with. So, all right. So let's go ahead and let me flip back here. And actually, let me zoom in. You can get a little closer look at some of the cool stuff that is happening. Oops. Let's go this way. So here we go. Let's move it over. Gotta move some of my paints. So there's that crazy kind of corner. But you can see some of the cool lacing you can get with the Liquitex formula and using metallics and non-metallics together. And I really like the blending that you can achieve with doing the flip and drag technique this way. Now you could get something kind of similar with just the standard floating cup. But it's a really fun formula. So it's kind of got a cool galaxy vibe to it. A weirdo galaxy vibe painting. So it turned out pretty nice. So I like this area right here, this aura of turquoise. I really like that. Those little subtle turquoise hints that we have in there. So, all right, let's go ahead and let me flip back. Okay, so any questions you might have about the technique or the formula, let me know. Or the colors again before we break here. And but I was pretty good. It's like, I guess, beginner's luck after a week off. I don't know, I'm pretty happy with the results. It turned out pretty nice. Not exactly what, you had in mind, or I had in mind, but I think the end result is different, but very interesting. So, all right. And one thing, what's happening? The camera is, oh no, we better break. Well, the camera seems to want to do something weird. But one thing I'll just mention, if you're going to use, let me flip over here. Stop doing that. Sorry about the camera glitches. We'll end in a second, but I just wanted to mention, if you're going to use the Liquitex formula, it's a good idea to wear gloves because that stuff is really sticky. So, and it can be really difficult to get off your hands. So I definitely recommend gloves when you're using the Liquitex pouring medium in your paint. So, that. Okay, it looks like the camera wants to go. So, it's not done from having its break, I guess. So, anyway, take care, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. This was a whole lot of fun demonstrating these with you and for you. So, great questions. I will see you Friday for our Friday demo. Give this a shot. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. And I'll talk to you again really soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.